For more on the Ukraine crisis, we're joined by Job Henning. He's a Truman Project fellow. Let's get your thoughts on this latest development, the ceasefire being extended. What impact is that likely to have?
Well, I think it's good development, first of all. You were faced with the prospect of moving into a more serious phase of the conflict. I think the impact it's going to have is it gives Putin a little bit of time to reconsider what he's going to do. I think Angela Merkel's commentaries over the last 2 days on the seriousness of Germany's position on new sanctions probably got Putin's attention. So I think it's going to give him a chance to think about that.
This is a document signed today that was the one that Viktor Yanukovych turned his back on, which really kind of ignited all of this. What are some of the pluses and minuses moving forward? Obviously, it's going to create a rift, one would think, with Russia moving to the West. Obviously, the president saying this is going to help with the modernization. So if you look at the total landscape, pluses, minuses for Ukraine.
Well, Mike, obviously we already have a pretty big rift with Russia, so I'm not sure we can count that either way. I think, at a high level, obviously this is a really historic document. It's a big deal. It did ignite the conflict, at least at some level. It's important. It opens up the market over time, at least for Ukrainian goods in Europe. Doesn't give any commitment to European Union membership for Ukraine, but it certainly sets it on a trajectory that makes that a possibility downstream. That all said, in the near term, it does set up some rough bumps in the road. There's going to be some big reforms that are called for in the economy and society there. It's exactly what Ukraine needs, but it's going to be hard to get there.
You bring up a really important point because people think, they look at this, they see they signing the document, this is fantastic. But the fact of the matter is, these reforms are going to be very difficult in some respects. This is a country that's already got its own issues. How much does that contribute to creating even more problems, would you say?
Issues, that's a light touch way to describe it. I think, look, you're going to see a lot of reform in subsidies and price controls. That's going to be incredibly painful to an economy that's already reeling. A lot of these reforms deal with corruption and transparency. Ukraine has not been a bastion of transparency over the last 20 years. There are a lot of vested interests that are going to resist that. I think it's brave, maybe even heroic in a way, to see Poroshenko go forward as he's done. His rhetoric, I think, has been responsible, but very direct on how important this agreement is. I think that's very good. But I think we should all be realistic about just how hard it is and how much support they'll need over time to really implement this agreement.
Well, you talked about that, so I'm going to touch on one of the things he said today. He wants to use this opportunity to modernize the country. He says the only thing he needs for that is peace and security. That's the only thing. Yeah. But that's a tough call, isn't it? I mean, it's not easy getting that.
Yeah, no, I think that's true. I think you've seen an extension of the ceasefire for 3 days till Monday. That's good. I think that, again, like I said earlier, I think it's probably a result of Putin looking at the possibility of level 3 sanctions being prepared. The political will in Western Europe may not be completely there, but there's enough uncertainty about how close it might be that I think Putin has pulled back from that. Whether that will lead to a more secure and stable place in Eastern Ukraine, I think really remains to be seen. I'm not terribly optimistic. Unfortunately, I do think Putin does control a lot of the cards. He can reduce Ukrainian access to the Russian market very easily, as he's already started to do, increase cost of gas. That's a cost imposition strategy alongside continuing to support the rebels there in the armed conflict. So I think one has to be realistic and careful about expecting how quickly we can see Poroshenko get to that. But it's a good aspiration, and it's the right aspiration.
And we talked about the reforms and the changes that are going to have to take place for Ukraine. How long before Ukraine really kind of turns the corner if everything falls their way?
Mike, I think it's a long-term project. I mean, I think we're 20 years into their post-Soviet life, but I think if they can really choose to follow this course with the EU trade agreement, I think you're looking at another decade or so in moving that direction. And if not moving into the European Union, at least aligning themselves and harmonizing themselves with the European Union. There's a lot of adjustment that has to happen, and I think everybody has to be patient. Policies have to be structured to support that over time, and no one should lose sight of the fact that we're still very much in a conflict with Putin. I think that should not escape anyone's attention. I think the Russian interest really remain very much at dividing Ukraine. I think the fact that this agreement was signed is a really big deal for Russia, and I think you'll see repercussions of that over the coming weeks and months, unfortunately.
Well, we'll definitely keep our eye on it, and we'll probably have you back. So thanks so much for coming in. Certainly appreciate it.